We are live. Noah Rubin and I are back. It is Monday. We are going through week 16, taking a look at the schedule, taking a look at some dodgy injury reporting, to say the least, touching on Joel Embiid and just discussing what teams we trust over the final 2 months, roughly, of the season for fantasy basketball. This is Fantasy Basketball International. This is Balls Deep.
I hear something.
It's coming from below.
I think you've become mad.
Almost as if something is moving below us.
Act a little peculiar and you're an outsider. Perhaps you've always been mad.
We know this program to bring you a live broadcast from the once defunct but now resurrected lost arts.
Don't you feel it?
Brigham.
Welcome to the Balls Deep podcast, part of the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. I am Adam King at Adam King 91 on Twitter is where you can find me. At FBI Basketball on Twitter is where you can find us. Bringing in Noah Rubin, fellow FBI-er. Noah, different backdrop today. You're away from home. You're on the road. Holiday break. What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's actually a work trip from my wife. She's, I guess, kind of at a company meeting because she's in sales, just kind of getting everybody together for a monthly meeting. And it's just happens to be that is about 10 minutes from my parents' house. So we're just kind of here for a few days, spending some time with family, which is great. But yeah, definitely a little bit of a portable mobile setup, trying to figure it out. I don't know if you saw as the intro was running, I was still adjusting the camera angles a little bit. So we're going to roll with it.
Yep. Look, we can hear you. We can see you. That's all we need. Hopefully your Wi-Fi and everything holds out. And
well, I'm sure theirs will be better than mine, so that's good.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, look, it's week 16. As I said, we're just going to touch on a few things for this week. We'll start with the schedule. Everyone wants to know the schedule. There are a few teams with 2 games this week. We haven't had that for a couple of weeks. But we've got Denver, Minnesota, Portland, and Utah, all with 2 games. So if you are looking at streaming, I'll preempt that with, if you are looking at streaming this week, if you have unlimited waiver moves, absolutely fine. If you only have 2 or 3, do remember that the trade deadline is only a few days away. So it might be a good idea to just tuck at least a couple of those moves in your back pocket just for... we haven't had any significant trades yet, but we usually do get a couple 2-3 days out from the deadline. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a trade in the next day or 2. Do you agree? Is this a time when we need to just be stashing some of those streaming spots?
I can't believe you're saying that the Steven Adams, Victor Oladipo deal wasn't ground shaking in fantasy basketball. But yeah, definitely trying to hold at least a few moves. I mean, I'm in leagues where it's 4 per week, and okay, like let me try and hold at least 2 of them till after the deadline. Yep. I'm also in leagues where it's make as many moves as you want, and it's just about how much you want to use of your fab budget. So I think yes, that knowing your league is important there, because I remember I don't know if it was last year, it may have been even the year before when I was writing pickup of the day columns, so it must have been last year, and saying, hey, you should stream this guy. He had like a 2-game week, and I had a lot of people say like, I can't believe anybody would actually stream it. Of course, like they say it a lot meaner than I would actually say while describing it, but saying that I was an idiot for saying that you should stream somebody with a 2-game week. I'm like, sorry, a lot of my leagues, I don't have a limit of 4 or 7 waiver acquisitions, but obviously there is some, and now I'm playing in some. So yeah, definitely something to consider with those teams that do only have 2 games this week.
And one of those teams, on a side note here, and I did the industry pickup recap with Mitch Casey yesterday, and we touched on standings and matchups and that sort of thing. And I'm barely hanging in. I can see the play-in or the playoffs, but I'm not quite there yet. But I am playing you this week in industry pickup, and you have Joel Embiid. So I'm not sad about that. You also have Karl Anthony Towns. He only has 2 games this week. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can pull out a victory over you. Nothing personal, of course, but feel free to rest players, do whatever you need to do if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, I might have to.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm hanging in. So yes, 4 teams with 2 games, and then we've got, I think it's 16 with 3, 10 with 4. So
yeah,
I think that's right. I wrote the article
right.
last night. So so the teams with 4 this week, we've got Atlanta, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Cleveland, Dallas, Golden State, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Sacramento, and Toronto. So fewer games. We have had a couple of weeks here where we've had a lot of teams with 4 games, which has made streaming, I don't know, a little harder just because there's so many options. But this week we've actually got, few teams with 4 and most with 3. In terms of games per night, it's a fairly balanced schedule this week. So usually we've been looking at a 12-game slate and a 4-game slate, and obviously you're streaming on the 4-game, not on the 12-game. This week it's pretty balanced. As I said, we've got 6 games tonight, 7 tomorrow, 7 on Wednesday, 9 on Thursday, 6 on Friday, 11 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So the weekend is obviously not balanced. Is there a reason why there's only 2 on Sunday that often there's something on? Is that Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's the Super Bowl, so it'll be 2, and I'm assuming afternoon games. I don't think there'll be anything at night. It'll be like a 1 or 2 p.m. and a 3:30 or something, just be wrapped up really early.
Yeah, so if you're looking forward to stream on that Sunday, we've got Boston at Miami and OKC hosting Sacramento. So they're the 4 teams playing on Sunday if you are looking that far ahead. But like we said, the trade deadline happens on Thursday, so who knows? Who knows what teams are going to look like? Maybe Josh Giddey will be gone. I don't think he will be, but I would like to see him go somewhere where he can, get the ball in his hands a little bit more. I'm not confident that'll happen, but that's more just me wanting Josh Giddey to play better. Right. So I sent through some topics. I just thought we'd start with Joel Embiid. That's obviously the hot news, the hot topic. He is now, the wording has been pretty weird with this from the team, from Woj, from Shams. They've all been saying different things. The latest, from what I could see when I woke up this morning, was that they're hoping it's 1 to 2 months, but if they go in and they find that they can do a full repair, it could be 6 months. So, I mean, this is a torn meniscus, and they're going in with a view, because the 2 options are you remove it, you clip it, and you're back in 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I don't know. My concern there is that if they do that, that means it's gone. The meniscus is gone, and longevity, especially for a guy his size, like he's a big human being. He's already had surgery to this knee in the past. If they do go in and they think, we want you back in 4 to 6 weeks, we're just going to do the trim, start rehabbing, get you back, what does that do for his future in the NBA? Like, I couldn't see this would be an ongoing knee thing that you'd have to manage for the rest of his career, basically, and probably caps him out at sort of 50 games, 55 games if he's otherwise healthy. And if the NBA stick with this weird 65 game to qualify rule, I find it hard to think that he would actually play enough games ever again to qualify.
Yeah, maybe they'll just to have him qualify, kind of do that thing that a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but was kind of suggested might happen this season of, hey, let's go have him do the tip-off and then do a quick foul, sub him out, and then he qualified to play the game. Obviously, that would mess with averages. It'd just be a whole mess of things to really consider. But just the other factors from that are a lot that could really impact fantasy this season or long-term, like you said. I think he's, 29 maybe? He's close to 30, 28, 29, and already had a number of knee issues early in his career, throughout his career, probably not going to stop anytime soon. It's a lot of factors that they have to consider of, okay, if we do something that takes a little longer, how does that affect our title chances this season, where Tyrese Maxey's playing really well and we have a very good team? and Joel Embiid's playing some of the best basketball of his career. How much do they weigh that versus the future of, hey, maybe this guy's already had so many knee injuries that, he's not a guy that we expect to play till he's 38. He's a guy that we probably see maybe 33, 34, kind of either hitting a wall and really dropping off his play or just retiring relatively early just because of other injuries. Is this something that we just kind of say, hey, we have this title window. Let's try and make some moves at the deadline, reload, have him back in a month and stay competitive. That way he's healthy for the playoffs. Like, what kind of factors are they putting into that as well? So a lot for them to consider, and we're just going to have to kind of wait and see. But I haven't seen, and maybe this is just me not looking at the right sources to see it, but much talk of Philadelphia trading for a center. Maybe you've seen something, but nobody's really suggested that. And I think that, Paul Reed, as long as Embiid's out and they don't have another center option, is going to be a great guy to stream. I know he looked at the last game, he played 15 minutes, and then there's reports that he had been sick. He's probably going to play somewhere 25 to 30 minutes when he's healthy. But could they trade for another center that's available? Could they trade for Clint Capella? Like, this is entirely just me spitballing here. No sources. I haven't seen anybody say this, but the Hawks are not, looking to full on rebuild. I don't think they're in a 4-game winning streak, which is probably preventing them from selling a little bit at the deadline if they keep winning. But Onyeka Okongwu's been sitting right there. Maybe this is just an ideal scenario where both teams kind of benefit because, hey, they're able to make Okongwu the starter. It's great for fantasy. It's great for his development. But also the 76ers get short-term help just until Embiid gets back, then have another rebounder for behind him. I don't know. That's just a thought that I've kind of had. I'm sure there's other center options out there that they could also trade for in the short term that would be really good fantasy options, but would also kind of take away from Paul Reed being this super streamer that we hope/think he can be, as long as there's no other competition for minutes.
So we're not thinking that Mo Bamba is pushing Reed for minutes. Well,
maybe.
I don't think so. Reed was bad in his last game. Word was that he was sick, and that's why he only played 15 minutes. But if you look at this season as a starter, he's basically a top 80 player in 9-cat, 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.1 steals, 1.3 blocks, 54 from the field, only 63 from the line. He's better than that too. He's more a 72, 73% shooter from the free throw line. So I think people just need to temper expectations on him a bit. I think they're expecting if he starts, he should be this top 50, top 40 player, and that's simply by looking at his per minute stats and then extrapolating that over 30 minutes. And we know that's not what you do because when you're playing a bigger role, you need to be a little more hesitant on defense maybe because you can't afford to foul as quickly and you get tired and all sorts of things. So I think if you can stream or add a top 80, possibly top 70 guy off the waivers, you do it and understand that there are going to be some ups and downs. They will go small at times. So, I think people should just sort of pump the brakes a little bit. If you've got him, hold him. I'm doing that. I'm not really going to consider dropping him unless we see 2 weeks of him playing 15 minutes and Mo Bamba getting time, and then they're playing Nick Batum as a small ball center. So, I think, and if you've got Embiid, I think, I don't know, do you hold him? I mean, you've got him in industry pickup. What are you doing with him? I've
got him in, I think, so I'm between my dynasty and redraft leagues that I have left. I have Embiid in every single one that I'm competitive in. So obviously the dynasty league, that doesn't change a thing, but the 2 redraft leagues that I have left, I'm just going to let him sit on my IL/IR, whatever you want to call it, until there's official word of, hey, he's going to be out for 2 months. If they're saying, hey, there's a chance it's 4 weeks, I'm just going to hold on to him until I'm out of the playoffs. And obviously at that point, I'm not going to drop him and give him the chance of somebody that's still in the playoffs to get him because that's unethical. But until there's absolute confirmation that there's no chance of him returning, I'm just going to leave him on the IL spot. I don't have, I guess a lot of guys that I'm looking to move in there that I would just have to drop him. But I guess until there's a fit, because like you said, the most recent timeline we've kind of heard is they're hoping for 1 to 2 months, and maybe they go through with the procedure and they're saying, hey, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. Okay, just in case my team is still around at that point, I will just kind of hold on to him. But not, I wouldn't drop him yet, but
Yep.
I guess there probably is some sort of scenario where somebody has like 5 people they need to put on their IL spots, and they kind of have to drop Embiid in order to bring somebody in just to stay afloat. I could see that happening, but I would just, if possible, just try and hold him around just because of, just how good he is.
So we've got a couple of questions on Twitter. Are you moving Embiid for Jordan Poole? Talk about a depressing trade or move. This, I guess, if you're considering this, you're obviously considering Embiid as a drop, because you wouldn't be grabbing Poole based on what he's done this season or what we're projecting him to do now. But rather than just simply dropping him, would you consider just grabbing Poole? I mean, we know the upside is there. Is he better than anyone you're likely to find on your waiver wire at the moment?
Probably. I think it is basically the same thing as dropping him and trying to pick somebody up. I dropped Jordan Poole earlier in the year in industry pickup after being really disappointed. I think I got him in the 4th round. And he's had a couple good games since then and a lot of really bad games. So if your idea is to drop Embiid, sure, add Jordan Poole. But this is just a hilarious question. Could you look back 4 months, early October, before the preseason started, we know Jordan Poole is about to, take over in Washington. Everybody's talking about the Jordan Poole takeover. We're talking about the Jordan Poole takeover. And now telling yourself then, hey, in 4 months, somebody's going to ask you if you should trade Joel Embiid for Jordan Poole. You're thinking Jordan Poole's averaging 30 points and 5 threes. You're not thinking, oh, Embiid, potentially season-ending injury, and Jordan Poole is so bad that people are asking, hey, this guy that might not play basketball again this season, should I trade him for Jordan Poole? It's just a very funny question, but I think that if you're fine dropping Embiid, then you might as well trade for Jordan Poole.
Yeah, I think there's enough upside there, and if in a and this is based on standard leagues, I suppose. So you're looking at sort of top 120, top 130 players floating around. So yeah, look, I'd be fine with that. So there is one more question, but we'll just move through a couple of the things that I sent you first.
Yeah.
One being the Grizzlies, just in general, the Grizzlies. If you look at their injury report at the moment, it's like 3 times the size of any other team. They're openly tanking like that? I know, I've been around basketball. Obviously, you've been around basketball. I find it very, very hard to believe that they would coincidentally have all these injuries at the same time, to the point where it's keeping guys out of games. This, to me, is we're simply just giving up, and we're going to play these guys who most fantasy people have never heard of. And it's frustrating. And for me, I'm just not touching any Grizzlies for the rest of the season, basically.
Yeah, I think that there is value to be had there, but there's no guarantee that it's anybody. There's no one player that you're saying, okay, everybody's hurt, so this guy's going to go off. There's nobody there that's good enough that you can say, yeah, he's absolutely 100% sure thing, going to put up big numbers. It is like we talked about, and we've been talking about this probably the last couple weeks as well, saying it was January, now it's early February, and this injury report looks like what Portland's has looked in late March, early April, the last couple seasons, where it was, hey, they are very, very openly tanking. The fact that they're doing this in early February and late January is just appalling. I'm surprised that the league hasn't really said anything at this point, or I wouldn't be surprised if sometime maybe in the off season there's some sort of punishment, just because, sure, there is certainly a possibility that everybody is hurt to the point where they can't play in the game. That is a possibility, but it just looks so fishy that after John Morant was suspended for a while and now has a season-ending injury, and Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane also have long-term injuries, that now all of their other rotation players are just randomly dropping like flies. So, I hope that, not hope that everybody's actually hurt, because that sounds bad, but hope that it's, there's some, I guess, an ethical approach behind it, and it's not that they're openly tanking like this, because I'm sure if they openly tank to this level for the rest of the season, there's going to be a lot of teams upset that they didn't do this last year for a chance to get Victor Wembanyama, because I'm surprised it's happening this year in one of the weaker draft classes in recent history when it could have happened last year when we were kind of expecting some teams to be like, hey, it's December. Let's go ahead and pull the plug on the season because Wemby's on the line. So it's very interesting. But yeah, no true, I guess, fantasy winner at this point. Maybe after the deadline.
Yeah, look, maybe. I'm just reading through their depth chart and injury reports now. So their healthy players officially are Luke Kennard, David Roddy, G.G. Jackson, Scottie Pippen, Jacob Gilead, Tosan Evbumwan, Matthew Hurt, and Trey Jameson. Like these guys, if you looked at start of the season, who's going to get rotation minutes, Luke Kennard, David Roddy, maybe, are the only two. The rest are guys who you wouldn't even consider. And a lot of their injuries now are just soreness. So they're not even labeling them as hamstring strain, ankle sprain, wrist. Like it's just soreness. I don't know. That seems fishy to me. But yeah, look, I mean, as you said, there's value there because with guys out, people have got to play minutes and do stuff. But knowing who that is from one night to the next is basically impossible, especially with the fact that teams are now ruling guys out an hour before tip-off. They're not even on the injury report. Oh, he's got a headache. He's not playing. So if we can't even trust the injury report, what can we do? And so that's what I mean where I'm avoiding Memphis because usually you need to set your lineup by a certain point. And, it's – anyway. And speaking of injuries and another dodgy team, Charlotte who are renowned for this. LaMelo Ball, you sort of mentioned to me when we were off air that he was questionable, that first game that he missed in this stint. He was then doubtful, and now he's just doubtful, ruled out every night. And Mark Williams, I mean, at least they've ruled Mark Williams out indefinitely. They haven't sort of indicated, he haven't upgraded him to doubtful or anything like that. So he's just out for, I don't know, insert time here. But is this a shutdown risk? Like, are we worried here with LaMelo that they do? I mean, Clifford went on the record talking about the fact that he doesn't think they're playing meaningful games and LaMelo is their future and they need him healthy and that sort of thing. If we've got LaMelo in fantasy, are we just holding him? Are we looking to trade even though we're going to get sort of kicked in the nuts in terms of value? You're not going to get a top 15 player for him, but do we just need to move him? Because I don't know, I'm a bit concerned here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a legit case to be made for totally downgrading in value just to get somebody that's actually going to play basketball games, because there definitely is a chance that he doesn't play again the rest of the season. I mean, I hope that he's able to, but they have one of the worst records in the league. Charlotte is not transparent about like timelines for injuries. Like they're just not. You mentioned the what we had talked about, that I think he's missed their last 5 games. Ahead of the first one, he was questionable, then out. Then I think the next 2 or 3, he was doubtful, then out. And this last one, I think again, for coming into their next game, just straight up, ruled out. So not doubtful, no chance. So it's like, how can you be questionable for the first game and then 5 games later, like there's not even a chance of you playing? It's just that lack of transparency is just very frustrating. So not only will you have to deal with the headache of will he play, will he not play, or how long will he be out, but he just might not play again. I mean, it's coming up on the trade deadline, 2 months left of the season. Why would they play him when they have 0 chance of making even the play-in tournament? So downgrading a few rounds of value and trading LaMelo for that, especially with, I know that Charlotte is one of the teams that has like a 2-game week, the same week that a lot of teams or a lot of leagues have their championship. So yeah, I'd have no problem downgrading a little bit by trading a guy that was going in the first round of drafts. Yeah.
It's frustrating. As I said off air as well, I don't have him in any active teams anymore, so I'm not personally invested in this, but it's it's a pretty frustrating situation in Charlotte. Same could be said for Gordon Hayward. I mean, we haven't heard boo from him or what's happening. I just hope he's traded, honestly, because I still think he's got a bit of gas in the tank there, but and could really help a contending team. But who knows? We'll find out in the next 5 days. A couple of questions. I'll bring these up and then we'll get to the next topic. I picked up Alex Caruso this week. Is that a dumb move with the trade deadline looming? Been going well, but if he is traded, he's obviously going to be playing a different role. Look, I mean, the Bulls are an interesting one. Levine is obviously done for the season. He's still in trade rumors, but doesn't sound like anyone are super keen to grab his contract and pick him up. Caruso at the moment is a must-roster player, so I don't think it's a dumb move in terms of picking him up because he's playing well enough to be rostered. And if you were sort of, I don't know, if you're not picking up players because you think they're going to be traded, I wouldn't really recommend that because we don't know. I think Caruso is, if a team is trading for him, yes, he might not start and play 32 minutes, but you'd be trading for him for a reason. He's a difference maker, especially on the defensive end. So even if he's traded, I think he probably still sees enough minutes to be a borderline sort of fringe top 100 player just based on what he can do on the defensive end. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think he kind of meets the standard of if someone's trading for him. Alex Caruso is not a throw-in a trade. There's rumors that they want an OG Anunoby type package, which probably not going to happen, but somebody would have to give up a good bit in order to bring in Caruso to their team, and he's going to be there to help them win. Like, they're not trading whatever it takes to bring him in and play 15 minutes. Like, they're probably going to play him 25 to 30. Say if it's a team like the Lakers or the Clippers, like I would imagine he starts on those teams. So he might continue to play, 30 minutes per game, and he's shooting like 7 or 8 shots per game. It's not like he's going to get traded somewhere and only see like 4, but obviously most of his value is coming from the other things that he does. I don't think that Caruso specifically is a guy that, picking him up is a bad thing, because I think that what he does in the court, he's going to be able to provide to the 29 other teams that could trade for him, even though it's only probably like a much shorter list. But he's going to start, he's going to play big minutes. And if there is a situation where he's coming off the bench, 25 minutes per game at least. So he's not going to take that much of a hit. And he's been, I think, top 75 this year. So.
Yeah, I agree. So this was the other question that came in on Twitter. What are we thinking rest of season? Miles Bridges or Jalen Williams, Paul George or Anthony Edwards? I'm assuming that's Anthony Edwards. Bridges is an interesting one because he certainly is someone that is rumored to be on the trade block with Phoenix pushing hard. It sounds like this has some momentum, this trade. And if he goes to Phoenix, it's Jalen Williams easily. Mm-hmm. If he stays in Charlotte and continues to play the minutes that he's playing, doing what he's doing, I'd probably take him over Jalen Williams. But this is a situation where I do think a trade might come, just because I don't think Charlotte view him as sort of a long-term piece. They don't want to keep him, which is interesting because I think he does have really good relationship with LaMelo Ball. They play well together. But obviously there's all the off-court stuff. And so maybe they just want to separate themselves from all of that finally. So I don't know. Is there a clear one for you? I think I'd probably go Jalen Williams. I think they're close enough that I'd probably lean him given the trade rumors.
Yeah, I'd pretty easily say Jalen Williams. If a trade to the Suns specifically happens, that's horrible for Miles Bridges' fantasy value. Like, he just simply would have to take a back seat on the offensive end and take a huge hit to his value. So then definitely Jalen Williams. If there isn't a trade, there's definitely some sort of shutdown risk for Charlotte. Mm-hmm. I mean, the last time that he played, they were in the play-in tournament. That's why I think he played 78 games that season. And last season, they were totally out of the play-in tournament, and obviously he wasn't around. So like, there's definitely a chance that they have him not play the last handful of weeks as they try and improve their lottery odds. But I guess kind of the reason that I would imagine that they're also trading him outside of the obvious off-court factors, which didn't really prevent them from signing him back to a contract, which is, kind of shows what they value. But the fact that I believe he's on a 1-year deal, just like mid-level exception, which I don't know the exact amount that he's making, but a fairly easy contract to move, but also they'd rather try and get something out of him than just let him walk for nothing. So if they can get some value there, you might as well. So I think that kind of also really helps Jalen Williams with his value, just because they probably don't value Miles Bridges all that much.
And Paul George or Anthony Edwards, is this a clear cut one for you?
I wouldn't say it's clear cut, but I think I would lead Anthony Edwards just because Paul George has started to have this groin issue flare up a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, per game value, Paul George is better than Anthony Edwards and has, I guess, kind of better category value all around. But I would imagine Anthony Edwards is a safer option, and he's going to provide value in the categories that he's really good at, which is, I guess, kind of what you expected when you drafted him. I guess unless there's a specific category or two that you need help in that Paul George would be better in, such as steals or maybe a little bit of an efficiency improvement, then sure, Paul George. But Anthony Edwards, I think, is the availability there that I imagine will be more. It'll be safer.
Yep. All right. Couple more questions. We'll just fly through these. On the topic of Miles Bridges, what do we think his value might be if he goes to Phoenix? He's top. I want to say he's top 40 so far, something in that range.
Yeah, top 50.
Top 50. I mean, I still think he'll be a viable asset in standard leagues. Like, I think he does enough defensively. He's a pretty good rebounder, good from the free throw line. So I still think that he would be someone that needs to be rostered. Top 50, no. Top 80, maybe. Top 100, I would say, is probably where I'd have him, in that top 100 range with upside to be a top 80 player. And I mean, of course, Durant, Beal, like these guys could get injured. We might have one or two of them out for a week or two at some point. So there might be little times when he can bump back up to being a top 50 player. But in general, probably top 100. What do you think?
Yeah, I think top 100's pretty safe. I mean, he still will be able to score. I mean, that starting lineup will be pretty interesting and I would imagine that he starts, though they could bring him off the bench. But either way, still scoring a good bit, being able to provide rebounds. I mean, last 2 weeks, he's averaged 1.3 steals and 0.9 blocks as well, 2.5 threes during that time. So I would imagine a little bit of an improvement with his efficiency, because he'd be like the fourth scoring option as opposed to the number one scoring option. So that should help him, and I guess kind of offset a little bit of the drop in production. But I think top 100 safe, and top 75, top 80 is probably the best that we'd see.
Head-to-head points. Who should I drop just in case? I don't know what this is just in case of, but I guess maybe if there's a pickup. But would you consider dropping any of these guys in a points league? Let's consider that this is just a standard sort of Yahoo ESPN points league. Okongwu, Ayo Dosunmu, Josh Hart, Paul Reed, Scoot Henderson. Few interesting names there. Okongwu is going to be the starting center in Atlanta for the next 2 weeks, I'd say.
Yeah.
Ayo Dosunmu has been really good the last 2 weeks, and Levine is not coming back. Josh Hart has been good as well since Randall went down. He's been getting rebounds. Reed, we've talked about him. Scoot Henderson has been playing well in Portland as well. So I don't know. Is there an obvious name here for someone that you'd consider dropping in a points format?
I think if I had to choose someone from this list, it would be Josh Hart, just because I feel like his game is better suited for category leagues. Dosunmu's been phenomenal, and now that we know Levine's done for the year, I think he should start. There's also a chance that they make more trades, or I guess start making trades that would open up even more minutes for him. I saw this morning a DeMar DeRozan trade rumor, so I don't know if that actually has legs, but that could certainly happen and would open up more shots, more minutes. Okongwu, like you said, I mean, there's a chance Capella gets traded, but even if he doesn't, he's going to start for at least the next couple weeks. Paul Reed, I mean, you have to hold Scoot Henderson. The last 2 games have been really good. The last game he shot bad, and then he didn't score much, but he had like 9 rebounds and 8 assists, or something was flipped like that. So I'm not going to drop him, not going to drop Paul Reed. I think Josh Hart would be the one to drop if I had to choose. Yeah,
I think Hart would be for me. I might consider Reed in a points format, only because I do think that he, like in terms of points, he might only get you 10 points, 8 points, but he'll get
Mhm.
8 or 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 steals. So maybe not. I don't know. I guess I'm not in a lot of points leagues, but I tend to I look at who scores the most here. Like out of all these players, who are the ones that rely on points? Scoot Henderson, yes. Aodosumu, yes. So I would hold them. Okongwu, not really a high points guy, but I feel like he could average more points than Paul Reed over the next 2 weeks. And yeah, as you said, Josh Hart might only get you 6 points, but he'll get 10 rebounds and 5 assists and 2 steals. So probably Hart, maybe Reed. We've got a few more questions coming in, which we will get to. But one last thing that we were going to talk about is we've talked about Memphis, we've talked about Charlotte, and obviously we don't trust either of those teams moving forward with injury reporting. So I thought I'd just quickly fly through the teams and get a yes or no, maybe sort of gauge where we are in terms of our level of trust. So considering that we're basically at the trade deadline, which then flows straight into the All-Star break, and for a lot of leagues, 2 weeks after that, we're probably into the fantasy playoffs. So we're looking at 2 months roughly left in the fantasy season. Which teams, if you're tossing up between player A and player B, and they're on 2 different teams, which teams would we prefer to go with or have more faith that they will be honest, they will play their guys, there's not going to be all this weird stuff going on like we've seen in Memphis and Charlotte. So I'll start at the top and go with Atlanta. Do we trust Atlanta? Even though I think their direction is a little bit up in the air, I trust Atlanta. They seem to be fairly honest with their injury reporting and don't typically rest guys.
Yeah, they don't really rest. I mean, as a fan of the Hawks, it's nice because they're not just like randomly resting players. So yeah, I would trust them. The only iffy player as far as injuries is DeAndre Hunter. But even then, they just had a back-to-back, and Quinn Snyder said, hey, we're sitting him with the intention of playing him the second night of the back-to-back. So things like that, I trust the Hawks.
Brooklyn, another team that, they've looked better the last couple of games. Ben Simmons is obviously sort of back. Do we trust them going forward? I'm not too bad with Brooklyn. Like, I know that they're not playing well, but they seem to be fairly honest and forthcoming with injuries. And we know Ben Simmons has obviously missed a lot of the season, but he has a big injury history. So other than that, I think they're pretty good with their injury reporting. Yeah,
I trust them. I don't trust any Ben Simmons report.
No,
but it's not his fault. I just think it's the way that he's reported on. I just don't really trust.
Yeah. Boston, I'm okay with Boston. I think they'll be like, we sort of know Horford is going to miss back-to-backs. I feel like come March into April, Drew Holiday, I think there'll be some rest. I think there will be, because they'll be atop the standings and wanting to be healthy for the playoffs. So I think there will be times when we see Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum all get the nights off, but I think we'll know ahead of time. They'll put that in. There's no dodginess there for me from Boston.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes they'll have like Porzingis play one leg of the back-to-back and Horford play the other, but I think we kind of know well ahead of time.
Yep. Charlotte, we've talked about them. Chicago are an interesting one. I think there's moves to come here for Chicago, so a little bit hard to know what their roster looks like, but I'm okay with their injury reporting as well. I feel like they're a pretty trustworthy team.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with anything. I mean, they have a lot of long-term absences, but as far as short-term ones, it all seems to be fine. So,
Cleveland. Yeah, I'm okay with Cleveland too.
Yeah, same boat. I mean, we've had injuries to Garland and Mobley, but it's been pretty clear about the timelines.
Yeah.
So.
Dallas, well, I mean, Luka and Kyrie are both in tonight for anyone that is keeping track there. They are healthy. Yeah, look, I don't know. I'm not as confident with Dallas as some of these other teams. They're not as bad as Charlotte and Memphis, but I'd have them probably in that lower end of if there was a trust level, I'd have them slightly down towards the back end.
Yeah, they haven't been very clear about their star player, Dante Exum, and how long he's going to be out. And it's very frustrating for us as his number one super
He
fans. So, yeah,
ruined my
lower
fantasy
end.
season.
Yeah, I had to drop him in industry pickup. It made me really sad.
It was. Denver, I'm fine with Denver.
Yeah, no issues there.
Detroit. Look, despite Detroit sucking and not having a great roster, I think they're reasonably transparent when it comes to injuries.
There was the other day where Cade was probable the entire day, got cleared to play,
Yeah.
and then they flipped him to out after, and it was like an early game. That was very frustrating because I had him in a lineup. But other than that, they've been mostly fine. So I guess kind of middle of the pack.
Golden State, I'd have their middle as well. I think a little bit of some shenanigans, but not too many.
Yeah, they've had a few long-term absences, but
Houston, obviously the Tari Eason one has been a little bit up in the air. That's probably the only frustrating one, though. I think other than that, they've been pretty good with their injuries.
yeah, no issues there. Hopefully we get to see more rookies.
A team that, surprisingly, when I look down their depth chart, they actually have a clean injury report at the moment. But the Pacers are, despite the fact that they're healthy, I don't know. My trust level is not great with them. Not necessarily in terms of injuries, but also just in terms of their rotation.
Yeah, because the other night they had was it McConnell start and Halliburton off the bench, and Nimhard didn't see the floor, and then for
He
their
played
last
6
game,
seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, then, my bad. Apologies. And then their last game, he was in the starting lineup with Halliburton. So I'm like, come on, can we just get a little bit of consistency instead of going from starter to not seeing the floor except for 6 minutes or 6 seconds and then back in the starting lineup? It's just weird.
And yesterday, Halliburton played 20 minutes and I want to say 13 seconds. With the cutoff for qualifying, you sort of touched on it earlier there that they'll have players who will have the opening tip and then foul and sub out so that they qualify. They actually have to play 20 minutes to qualify as a game played. So, that if Halliburton's only going to play 20 minutes, I mean, just don't play him. Clippers. Yeah, I'm pretty good with the Clippers. I think we know Paul George is going to be managed for the next little bit with his injury, but I think they've been pretty good this season.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that the Clippers have been pretty reasonable as far as their injury reporting, because it seemed like for a few seasons there, it was very iffy and that a lot of people were questioning them. So, but yeah, they've been good.
Lakers, well, no. I mean, LeBron and AD are questionable every night, and they have actually started missing some games. So there was a period there where they were questionable, but we just expected them to play. Anthony Davis, I think, missed 2 games last week. LeBron has missed – it feels like he's missing sort of a game a week over the last little bit. So, I don't really trust the Lakers.
They just make a joke out of the injury report and just have LeBron and AD questionable every time. It's just frustrating for everybody all around, even if we kind of expect them to play.
Memphis, I don't need to talk about Memphis. Miami, Miami are a bit frustrating. Jimmy Butler, I'm always worried. It's why I didn't draft him. I'm always concerned that he's going to miss time. They had a Bam was out for a little while earlier on. Jaquez is back. I don't know. They're probably not top of my list, but they're not bottom either.
I'd say they're a little bit towards the bottom. I think that over the past, I guess, year and a half, they've had a couple of instances. I know they got fined early last season for bad injury reporting. And then the next day they had literally every single player on the injury report as questionable or something. And I remember that because those blurbs were really annoying to write. But I mean, the other night they had Tyler Hero get listed as a starter. And then after that, they added him as questionable and had Josh Richardson starting. And then 15 minutes later ruled out Tyler Hero. And I think that's more of a one-off thing, but I guess kind of middle, maybe lower middle is where I'd have them.
The Bucks, I think the Bucks are generally pretty good. Giannis, I feel like he's just going to pop on and off injury reports for the rest of his career. Lopez is questionable tonight, but it's personal. So it's nothing to do with injuries or anything like that. So the Bucks, I think, are fairly transparent.
Yeah, I mean, we know that Chris Middleton's going to sit back-to-backs, but yeah, for the most part, they're fine.
Minnesota, no real issues with Minnesota this season.
No
I think
issues.
they're actually competing. They want to win. So they're just going to, they want their guys out there. So they're going to play them. Pelicans, probably, I'd have the Pelicans sort of in that bucket with the Heat. Not the worst, but far from the best.
Yeah, I agree. There's just a number of guys that are always going to have a chance of being on the injury report too.
The Knicks, I don't know. The Knicks, to me, feel like a team that shouldn't be in this same bucket as the Pelicans, but they sort of are because Grimes has had this injury that sort of came up. Anunoby, we know Tibbs, if they're playing, that he's going to play them 40 minutes. So there's always that concern that even if they come back and they're healthy, like if Anunoby's questionable, I think, for tomorrow with his elbow injury, it's not like he's going to come back and they'll ramp him up and he'll play 20 minutes for a couple of games. He'll come back in and play 38 minutes. So does he re-injure it and he misses another week? So I'm not a fan of the Knicks and the way that they run their rotations.
But I do 100% trust it because if someone's hurt, then they must be really hurt for Tom Thibodeau to say, yeah, it's okay for you to not play this game. Because, I mean, there was reports that Quentin Grimes, because he used to be kind of a favorite of Tibbs, where they were saying, yeah, we're not going to trade for Donovan Mitchell if it includes Quentin Grimes. Like, looking back now, that seems silly, but he kind of fell out of favor with Tibbs. This was just a report that I saw, so I don't know if it's true. But I think it was like at least a little bit reasonable, was that since he sat out games in the playoffs because he was hurt, Tibbs kind of lost a little bit of faith in him, which we've kind of seen this season. So it kind of adds up, makes sense. But yeah, I think for the most part, at least trust the injury report, even if the OG Anunoby one has been a little bit frustrating.
OKC, I feel like OKC are okay. I think
they're competitive. So
Jalen Williams thing has been lingering, but we knew this. They said that he's probably going to miss a week or two. So there were no surprises there. Orlando, shockingly, have been pretty good. There's still some dodginess there, but they've got a pretty clean team sheet at the moment. They're competing. The Fultz minutes thing, that's a bit frustrating. He's only playing sort of 20 to 25 minutes, but in terms of injury reporting, I think they've been good.
Yeah, I think that obviously there's the two guys in Markelle Fultz and Jonathan Isaac that have had a career of injury issues. So if they're a little bit iffy, like I think that's pretty understandable. But the rest of the team, no issues.
Philly, well, yeah. I mean, we know Embiid is done for the next little bit. I mean, they're pretty good with their injury reporting. It's more their build. Like they've got a lot of old guys there. Like Batum, like Morris, Pat Beverly, who, when they're healthy, but they're just never healthy. They always have little things going on. So Philly are a team that I'm probably not, if I'm streaming, it's going to be hard. I think if you've got Maxey or Oubre, these guys that are locked in and are a little bit younger, they're fine. But I don't know. They're a team that I don't really target in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a lot of fantasy-friendly guys, so that makes sense. There's only a couple guys that are worth rostering, but they also do have a lot of, like you said, like older guys that are just aging veterans. Little injuries tend to linger a little longer. So, yeah, not a lot of trust, but not the worst.
Phoenix. Phoenix are good. Again, they're going to have some injuries. I'm pretty sure Durant will miss some games here. Beal, Booker is not... He's no stranger when it comes to hamstrings and groins and things like that. So I think there'll be some injuries here, but they're generally pretty good with their injury reporting.
Yeah, I mean, we know they're going to miss games, but no issues.
Portland, yeah, I'm probably avoiding Portland.
Yeah, no, I don't trust them with what they've done the last two seasons over the last 3 weeks of the year. So.
I'll skip over because I think San Antonio are probably going to fall into that bucket as well. At the moment, they've been pretty good, but we saw last season Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, these guys, they were basically in, out, and I think we might see that again. Sadly, I think Wembanyama will fall into that trap as well, where they just start resting him randomly. So, yeah, don't really trust them. But the team in between is Sacramento. I think I do trust them. They need to win. They need to keep winning. Generally, they're a pretty good team when it comes to injuries. They haven't had a lot of injuries over the last couple of years, so that could flip. I mean, we said the same about Memphis, and look at where they are now. But Sacramento, I think, are a fairly honest team.
Yeah, and we're far enough into the season where like they're not going to pull the plug unless they have 6 injuries all at once that are season ending. But yeah, I mean, there's 4 or maybe 5 guys worth rostering in most leagues, and they're going to be pretty clear about Fox, Sabonis, and Keegan Murray. And those are the main 3 guys. And
then the last 3 teams are actually all probably in the same region when it comes to trustworthiness: Toronto, Utah, Washington. Toronto, I think I'm going to reserve judgment on Toronto until we see what happens at the trade deadline, because I feel like they're a team that might make some moves still. I know they acquired Barrett and quickly, but I don't think they're done. Bruce Brown could be on the move. Gary Trent could be on the move. So, yeah, I'm probably going to reserve judgment on them. Any thoughts from you on Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something we have to wait and see what they decide to do at the trade deadline. I think that is kind of the big thing, but yeah, it's kind of hard to say at this point. Utah
are playing better. I know they've lost a couple in the last week, but better than they were to start the season. But their guard rotation is still really weird. They continue to start Chris Dunn, and he plays 7 minutes in the first quarter and then doesn't come on basically for the rest of the half, and does the same in the second half. So he's playing 16 minutes a night, which cuts into Keontae George's minutes. What's happening with Walker Kessler? He's up and down a bit. John Collins has been all right. We know Sexton has been really good, but I feel like it's going to cool off. He's got to come back to earth. Kelly Olynyk is still a really fantasy-friendly player, but he's just not getting minutes. So for me, I know Utah, they're pretty good with their injury reporting, but I'm just not sure what their minutes look like from one week to the next.
Yeah, the rotation's been pretty impossible to predict, other than predicting that nobody's going to see big minutes except for Markkanen. So yes, Colin Sexton's been playing well, but he's not going to see 30 minutes per game. Even Keontae George, when he was playing well, I mean, with him playing better recently, not going to see 30 minutes per game. So the injuries, no issues with how they're reporting it. Haven't had any issues, but I think it's, like you said, it's the rotation that's the frustrating part.
And Washington, I don't trust Washington. It's a good segue into a question which I saw. Where was it? Sure, there was a Bilal Coulibaly. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, totally. Is Coulibaly a stash hold in 9-cat leagues, even if no one gets traded or moved? Yes, I think he is. He is one of the guys I feel like I have a decent level of confidence here that he will be starting and playing 32 minutes at some point in the next month.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like the situation that I was saying in Memphis, where there isn't a guy that I'm saying we definitely need to get him because he's going to be better than all the other guys they try and play. That's probably what's going to happen here in Washington. I mean, Kuzma didn't play in their last game, and Coulibaly got to start. He didn't do anything, but he started. I think that after the trade deadline, they'll make some moves there, and then within the coming weeks, like you'll see injuries happen or just guys fall out of the rotation. They're going to try and get their top 10 pick some minutes, along with guys that aren't really part of their future. Those are the guys who are going to probably see minutes over the last few weeks of the season. So yeah, I think Coulibaly is definitely a guy to stash at this point. We're this close to the trade deadline, might as well.
Hopefully it's not this week because you have him in industry pickup. So I'm hoping that that he doesn't play well this week. A dynasty question for you. So there's quite a lot of questions here actually. So we'll fly through them before, because I've actually got to go and do my work. Would you trade Miles Bridges in a dynasty? So how does a potential trade and everything impact his dynasty value for you?
Let me see if I can quickly find where I have him ranked. But so the last rankings I did, which were from last month, I had him at 69. So I think a trade to the Suns obviously limits his value. And I guess the thing to consider is that he still has a 1-year contract. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to re-sign in Phoenix. So it may be a good opportunity if you're interested in trading for him to wait. If a trade to Phoenix happens, okay, great. I'm going to buy low because this summer, if he plays well for the Suns, helps them win games, he'll probably get paid more because he's a talented player to go play for a different team where he's going to have a larger role. So that's probably how I would value him over the next couple of weeks.
Is Suggs a stash if Fultz is traded? Well, I think Suggs is still someone that should be rostered. I know he hasn't been as good as he was to open the season. I know that, but I think he had like 2 steals and a block yesterday with some assists and a couple of threes. So I think he's doing enough. So I would say, yeah, look, if you've got him, just hold him. I wouldn't be dropping him. And if Fultz is traded, then they have been going with Suggs as their point guard, with Jonathan Isaac closing games. So, yeah, maybe that is something that they're toying with, that idea of playing Suggs as a point guard. I'm not convinced he is a point guard, but he has flashed upside in terms of assists. So, yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. So if you've got Suggs, I'd be holding him, certainly.
Yeah, definitely not going to drop him.
Would you be holding Simmons or Vince? So Ben Simmons or Vince Williams here. Who would be your preference? Is neither an option? I mean, Simmons obviously has higher upside. I think but the chances of him getting to that ceiling of 30 minutes a night is basically zero. Vince Williams could easily play 30 minutes a night for the rest of the season, but he's already popping up on the injury report. So I don't really trust either of them. I don't know. Would you lean one way or the other here?
See, it's funny because you were saying that you wouldn't want to hold either. I think I probably would try and hold both if I have the roster spot because I don't know. I like Vince Williams Jr. I think he's been awesome this season. I don't know if he's the level of talent or if they view him as a type of player where, hey, we're going to rest him for the rest of the season because we're trying to lose games, or if he's young enough that they're saying, hey, let's have him continue to have a lot of run. And I think that that's still in play here, even if he did kind of miss their last game. But Ben Simmons, like you said, he may not play 30 minutes per game, but he's been playing 15 and been awesome. Could he get to 20 minutes per game? I think I'd probably prefer Vince Williams at this point. But if we go a couple more weeks and he's still on every single injury report, then it's like, oh, okay, so this is how it's going to be. And yeah, probably not either what I feel great about, but I think I would try and hold both.
Yeah, so the rest of there's just people answering questions, so that's good. Means we don't. Well, we've talked about him anyway. Is Hunter a hole in a 16-team 9-cat league? So DeAndre Hunter, 14 players. So that's a pretty deep league. 16 teams, 14 deep rosters. With one IL. Is Hunter a hold? Yeah, look, I think probably in a league that deep, you're looking at over 200 players, and he's a top 200 player for me. I mean, he's not super sexy when it comes to fantasy, but he can get you some points, a little bit of defensive stuff. His minutes are ramping back up. So I think he's probably a hold in a 16 team.
Yeah, I'd say he's a hold. He's been playing like 15 minutes per game since he got back. He's going to sit back to back. So he'll probably get up to 20 and 25 within the next few weeks as far as minutes. So yeah, I'd say he's a hold.
Love the podcast. Great. It's nice when we know that they're listening. Not always the case. Does sound like you need to get off Miles Bridges if you have LaMelo. Yes, I would certainly. If you've got both of those guys, I would be looking to get off one of them at least, given what's happening in Charlotte at the moment. Caruso did look sore at the end of the last game. I feel like he always looks sore, but yes, he did, and he is questionable. And this is the issue with Caruso. It has been his whole career, is that he plays 3 games and then misses 2 games and then plays 5, misses 8. He's always in and out. And I think part of that is just his style of play. Like, he's just throwing himself around. He's always banging bodies. And so that's the risk you take. But I still do think he needs to be rostered because usually he only misses 1 or 2 games, or like he doesn't get a lot of long-term injuries. I feel like it's just that he's so sore that he has to have a couple of games off. So I still think that he's, someone to roster there. All right, let me have a look. What have we got? I'm just finding questions. There's a lot of comments in here, but I don't need to pull all these up. Drop Suggs or Garrett or Grayson Allen in the Yahoo Points League. Well, if it's a standard league, you could probably consider dropping both. Like, I don't think there's a clear drop here. I think both are probably borderline in a points league. Again, my mind goes to who scores more, and it's probably it has been Grayson Allen, but with Phoenix healthy and if Miles Bridges does come, his points could drop to 10 or 12 a game. Suggs is not a big scorer. I don't know. Is there a clear one for you here?
For reference, Grayson Allen is scoring 13 points per game this season, and Suggs is at 12.3, so it's not really a difference there.
Yeah. Okay.
Grayson Allen is awesome for category leagues and has been, but I think a lot of that is just efficiency and knocking down a lot of threes. So not a definite hold here, not one I'd really prefer in a points league. So
what center should I target in a trade? Hartenstein, Reed, Pirtle, or Kessler? I mean, we don't have all the specifics of the trade or the league here, but in terms of rest of season value, I guess if we're looking at that, I think Hartenstein would probably be top of that list. Kessler is probably bottom, just based on the fact that he's playing 17 minutes a night or 19 minutes a night. And then I'd probably have Reed or Pirtle in the middle. Reed probably has a bit more upside because we don't really know what he's going to do with his minutes. Pirtle, we know exactly what we're getting, but he is just coming back off an injury, and the Raptors are a bit sort of in flux in terms of where they're headed. So I don't know. That's probably my order. Would you have a different order?
I think without considering that Toronto could pull the plug on their season at some point, I would say like Pirtle is the best fantasy player. Well, actually, Kessler probably is, if we're not really considering outside factors as far as like minutes go. But I feel best about Pirtle probably down the stretch of the season. If Toronto full on pulls the plug, then maybe that would change the answer. But I don't think that they're gonna full on bench everybody and outright tank. Like, I think Toronto's, I don't know their exact record off the top of my head, but like maybe compete for the play-in for a little bit. But I could see like last week or two, injuries. But I think I might actually go Pirtle, Hartenstein, Reed, Kessler.
Yeah, okay. If Kuzma gets traded to the Mavs, does his value drop like Bridges? His value drops.
Yes.
Possibly not as much as Bridges, only because Luka and Kyrie are basically it in Dallas. They have no one else who scores. Tim Hardaway, I suppose, but he should be coming off the bench and does come off the bench. So, yeah, I think he does take a hit. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, just not as much as Bridges because he's going to have at least one generational passer and another good passer in Kyrie, as opposed to Miles Bridges going and playing alongside 3 guys that can average 30 points per game.
All right. Getting to the bottom of the list here. Being offered Lillard and Bane for DeJounte and Brandon Miller in a standard 9 cap. Well, I would say yes, definitely, if they were all healthy. If all these guys are healthy, it's a no-brainer. But they're not. I don't know. Where are you on Bane? Like, I think Bane wants to come back. But does he come back? And if he does, is he managed rest of season? DeJounte still a decent chance to be traded. Brandon Miller is on a real hot streak at the moment, so you're sort of selling high on Brandon Miller. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one?
I don't think I'd do this. I think I'd prefer to have DeJounte and Brandon Miller because Desmond Bane if he comes back, like you said, are they going to manage his minutes? Are they going to manage his games? Is he going to come back? I mean, they've already kind of have literally everybody on the injury report. So why would they bring back Desmond Bane for more than just a handful of games and limited minutes? I mean, maybe that, but I'd rather have the DeJounte and Brandon Miller over what Dame has been this season. Like, he hasn't been prime Damian Lillard. Like, the numbers still look really, really good, but he just hasn't been, I think, shooting the ball as well. DeJounte, for a while there, it seemed like a guarantee he'd be traded, but I actually saw it happen in the last 3 seasons. I think that the Hawks were, considering kind of trading players at the deadline, and then went on like a long win streak, like right before, and ended up not doing anything and then losing in the first round. And now they've won 4 games in a row. So I think that there's a chance that they just hold DeJounte, or if they do trade him somewhere that really, really needs him. So I don't think he's going to take a massive hit in value at the deadline. And like you said, Brandon Miller's been awesome.
Yeah, I think probably the only way I'd consider this is if you're sitting at the top of your standings, and so you can take a bit of a risk here and just plug Bane into an IR spot. Because if he does come back and he's healthy, he's a top 20 player, top 25 player. So if he's healthy for the fantasy playoffs, in theory, he could win you your league. But you'd have to be pretty comfortable at the top of your standings here, I think, to take that risk. Do we think Drummond would gain value if he left Chicago? I don't think so. I don't think any team is trading for him to be a starter or anything like that. I mean, he only needs 22, 23 minutes, I think, to be a 12-team kind of back-end guy. But I don't see anywhere. I just don't see him landing anywhere where he plays more than about 15 to 17 minutes.
What if Philly trades for him and they just say him and Paul Reed split the minutes until Embiid gets back? I think that's possible, as far as like a situation that would work. But I don't really see any other situations where it would work like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That would be interesting. I mean, there's plenty of teams that could use him. That could do with a backup center. I mean, I'm probably in this trade sort of space, what we're looking at in the next few days. The one thing I really hope is that OKC get a backup center, because I think that is the piece they need. They just don't have anyone behind Chet at the moment, and there's a few guys there, and Drummond could be one. I still like Goga Bitadze if they were able to get him as a backup, but we'll see. We'll do this show next week, and we'll be talking about hopefully a lot of cool trades that happen, because I know there have been years when the trade deadline is just a disappointment. We get all these rumors and all these speculative trades, and then nothing actually happens. So I'm hoping that we do get some good ones this year, but we'll see. So I'm going to let you go because I'm already late for work. You've got stuff to do, I'm sure. You've got to take me later this week or not this week? We'll see. TBD. We'll see. Okay. But we do have the Q&A tomorrow over with Roto World same time. So we do. Yes. So we'll be over on the Roto World channel tomorrow doing that. That will do it for today's show. Remember, you can check out all of our content over at fbibasketball.com. Oddly enough, our content and our activity within the Discord server actually ramps up over the next month to 2 months because of Dynasty. We obviously have yourself in there. We have Matt Lawson in there. Dynasty ranks will be updated, and everyone's focus shifts from redraft into Dynasty. So, look, come over and jump into the Discord server, because it will be a hive of activity over the next 4 to 6 months. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We'd love it if you would subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Like this video, like all of our videos. Thanks for listening. Until next time, catch up.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.